Welcome back to Aquarian Anarchy. We are ready to take you on a hero's journey, an adventure, none like any other. This is going to be a fun conversation. We've had this conversation before. Last time we did it with Vin Armani about 2 years ago, and we're gonna reignite some of that stuff and get back into it because I think it's a really important story to tell. It's the story that's within all of us, and we are ready to tackle it. We'll be right back. Nicco's on his way. Aquarian Anarchy coming right back at you. Let's get it. Quote for tonight from Voltaire de Cleyre: "Anarchism to me means not only the denial of authority, not only a new economy, but a revision of the principles of morality. It means the development of the individual as well as the assertion of the individual. It means self-responsibility and not leader worship." So, Marcus, since you chose that quote,
sure.
I am going to give you I'm trying to push the wrong button. I'm going to give you the opportunity to explain to the audience why you chose that quote, because it's one that doesn't necessarily come off as being like in line with the hero's journey as a theme, but I think you have something up your sleeve here.
I do. One of the things that one of the reasons why I wanted to talk about this subject in the hero's journey is because I've been analyzing the hero's journey, and for anyone that, and I'll get into what Voltaire has to do with that in just a moment, but in that journey of my own, Joseph Campbell in Hero Without a Face, in Chad, if Chad has the book.
Oh, it's the Hero with 1,000 Faces.
1,000 Faces. Yes. Right. Sorry.
And it's really cool. Like, they did a mosaic of a bunch of different heroic figures to make this figure, and it's just a really cool cover to the book.
Agreed.
But there it is.
Agreed. So in that book, he talks about the hero's journey, and where I got introduced to Joseph Campbell and those ideas was in a special he did, and I shared that special with Chad. It's really old, but I had seen it a long time ago, where he compared the hero's journey to Star Wars. Joseph Campbell was friends with what's his name? Star Wars. I can't. My brain's
George Lucas.
Yeah, George Lucas. My brain's leaving me apparently.
Oh, sharing the show. Sorry, I can re-engage and I can help out a little bit as your brain, as your old man brain.
Right. For sure.
This is you're getting a little bit of one of the things that happens in the hero's journey. You encounter someone like Marcus, who has this big long gray beard, has all this wisdom, but may I don't know, get somebody's name wrong here or there, or may just
might be a little crazy.
Might be a little crazy, right? Smoking a pipe or something like that. You give off some serious Gandalf vibes. I'm not
good. That's like, exactly where I'm going. So in my understanding, again, I learned about the hero's journey and the idea that all of these historical figures, that mythological figures, religious figures, all kind of fall into this archetype that Campbell calls the hero's journey. Well, as I knew that from the past, I've been getting into diving deep into Tolkien and into Tolkien's world. And Tolkien uses massively the hero's journey, both in The Hobbit and in The Lord of the Rings. But there's a difference between Star Wars and The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings. And that is that in both of those cases, in Star Wars, the main character or the protagonist is Luke. He's the guy that you're following through his journey and all of that. Right. In The Hobbit, it is Bilbo, who is the hero. He's the protagonist. The difference in The Lord of the Rings is that the hero and the protagonist are two different people.
Yep.
And those people are Frodo, who is the primary person that moves the story ahead, and Sam, who is the actual hero of the of the story. So what that teaches me and what that has to do with Voltaire and de Cleyre is that as a freedom movement, we're too busy often trying to be Frodo and forgetting that we're on a hero's journey. We're not on the protagonist's journey. We're not trying to be the most important person in the room. We're trying to do the right thing. And sometimes that means not being the guy in front. That means maybe you're wrong sometimes. Maybe you need to understand that a hero story and a protagonist are two very different places, and often they do coincide. In many stories, they're the same person. But particularly in the Lord of the Rings and many other ones, you can think of, for instance, the protagonist in Paradise Lost is the devil. He's the bad guy. He's the villain, but he is the main.
He's the driver of the story.
Correct. And so it's not always the hero that is the leader of the story, but at the same time, on the reverse of that, I think that we as religious people, as people who have a penchant for freedom, we need to remember that. We need to have that understanding because, like, for instance, just to use Christianity as an example, the protagonist in your story is supposed to be Jesus.
So it's funny that you say that, because as you were talking about this, I was actually just thinking about that exact thing. And I think that if you read the Bible, the protagonist is the Jewish people.
That may be.
And
I buy that.
And the hero is Jesus.
I buy that. I'm talking about just in like
the New Testament.
Yeah, in the New Testament, just dealing with Christian.
Yeah, he's certainly the story centers around him in the New Testament, and he's also the hero of it. But it's
I could make an argument that the hero in the Christian faith is each individual.
Okay. Well,
because their journey is to find themselves closer to God.
Yes. So, all right. So that's, if you want to continue, let me know. But if not,
no, I'm good.
That's a good point for me to bring up, because I just was pulling this up. So one of the things in this section, it's called the hero and the God. It's interesting that you brought that up. So I'll bring it a little close to the screen here. So you see there's like an X, a Y, and a Z, and there's like this circular arrow that kind of goes around. There we go.
I can see it.
Anyway, it's so what it talks about is, I'll just read from here. It says the standard path of the mythological adventure of the hero is a magnification of the formula represented in the rites of passage: separation, initiation, and return.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, that's the story of humanity. We are separated from God at the fall.
Amen.
And then we go through an initiation through circumcision or whatever it is for the Jewish people. And then as you get, Christianity, it's baptism. Sure. And then it's the return. And what is the return? The return is the being reborn, or in the Jewish people's case, it's the return of the Messiah. It's all these things where you have that sort of, but yes, to your point about the individual being the hero, that each one of us has to find that truth, to like actually seek truth and to try to find it. And the way that happens is through a lot of very difficult trials by fire and struggle and hardship. And anyway, so it says Prometheus ascended to the heavens and stole the fire from the gods, and then descended. Jason sailed through the clashing rocks into a sea of marvels and circumvented the dragon that guarded the golden fleece, and returned with the fleece and the power to wrest his rightful throne from a usurper, Aeneas. Anyway, it just goes through all these different books where it's all that same sort of formula of that rite of passage, where it's I don't know, a fall or a separation, and then the initiation where you go out, you are initiated into your journey, and your journey begins, and then you come back, but you come back with something. And that's what it's funny that, you know, we're talking about it this way, because it's the part that's at the core of all this, right? And that's what actually, when we had that conversation way back then, 2.5 years ago almost, with Cyprian, Vin Armani, the takeaway at the end was, you know, Nicco asked him, you know, what's the boon that we're supposed to get? Because, you know, everyone, you know, it's always with Bilbo, it was, he came back with the
ring,
the sword. Well,
the ring of power.
He had the ring, but he also came back with the sword,
and
with the mithril cloak, all these different things,
magical stuff.
But
the magical stuff.
Yeah, the magical stuff. Exactly. So you come back with something, and some of it even is his story, like telling them of what his adventure was when he came back. Sure. And, you know, in Star Wars, it's you know, the lightsaber, or, you know, you there's always something. You go out and you come back with something, and that something
Luke
symbolizes like the transition that you went through, the transformation.
Yeah, I think,
the Force. Yeah, his attunement to the Force. Yeah.
And I think that we see this difference in the Lord of the Rings too, because Frodo doesn't really come back with some shit. Frodo comes back with being hurt. He comes back with being, you know, really the wound that he suffered from the wraiths, from the ring wraiths, didn't ever end. They you know, they managed to cure it to a degree, but it still fucks with him.
A permanent wound. Yeah.
Right. But Sam, on the other hand, does come back with some stuff. Sam comes back with, you know, one of the first things that when he comes back at the end of the Lord of the Rings, and if I'm doing spoilers for people, where the hell you been? but
the books were written 80 years ago, and the movie was made 20 years ago. Like, where have you been?
Right.
Sorry for spoiling something that,
yeah, for sure.
You've probably seen the whole thing on TikTok already.
Right. But Sam comes back, and Frodo has to kind of almost immediately go off with Gandalf and the others, and goes to the Westlands where the elves take off to. And but Sam, on the other hand, he comes back and gets married. He comes back and realizes all the things that he's got. He realized he has had his adventure, and now he's ready to live a real, you know, good life, a life filled with virtue. And so he gets married, he raises his kids, he does good things. And I think that some of those ideas really mesh with what we talk about here, beyond the religious and deep stuff. But I think that really hits on what we talk about politically too.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not doing this shit. I'm not out here trying to convince people that they need to stop being statists because I want to win some contest or some shit. Right. I want to not have to worry about somebody stealing shit from me, hurting my family, or killing folks. You know, I want to be able to live my life as it is. And so that kind of gives me that hero's journey in my own life right now. I am, you know, kind of going through a transition, I believe, in my spirituality. And in that spirituality, what I'm transitioning to, God knows. Who the fuck knows? But one of the reasons why I'm looking at Tolkien in particular is because of what I've learned about him. And that is that, one, he is trying to write one of those stories that stays with us forever. You know, he's trying to write a Gilgamesh. He's trying to write a Beowulf. He's trying to write one of the Arthurian legends. And what he did was he clued in on what more modern minds symbolically see as patterns in the universe, and tried to put those into his story so that it gave us a mythological framework to move forward with. So I'm looking at that as a possibility of getting some enlightenment on modern religion.
Yeah, it's interesting because so much of this stuff is like I remember hearing somebody say one time that they 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 liked a certain movie because it wasn't formulaic, and I was like, I mean, what do you mean exactly? And if you think about it, like I think maybe there's some ways that you can do things. Like for instance, like the movie Memento is
Mhm.
what I would describe as a non-formulaic because it starts at the end and
Mhm.
works back to the beginning, you know, and
Sure.
that's like the reveal. But in terms of this, it's still the same formula
Yeah.
like that. And what I think Joseph Campbell captured when he did this work was that we cannot escape this story
Mm.
because it's the story that's written in the human soul,
Amen.
and we have to because we live that separation, and we go through our own different each one of us goes through our own different initiation at some point, and then it's about when we return, what are we returning to and what are we returning with?
Yeah.
Like what does our journey, what does our adventure teach us, and what do we, what kind of level ups do we actually achieve on that path? And I think to your point, um, when you start to look at this through the lens of I'm I'm looking more at things to be more of that Samwise Gamgee. Like I know that it's my role to make sure that the protagonist doesn't die and that he survives this because
Right.
the task has been given to him. I need to play that supporting role and make sure that the task gets carried out. And I need to make sure that he isn't corrupted by the power that has been given to him.
For sure.
And if that's the role that I can play, it makes it to where if you think about it, like if we were all trying to play through somewhat that role,
Mhm.
a very unselfish role. And it's funny because I just got back from one of my son's basketball games, and it's that they have a really good team. They've got 8 seniors, and it's there's a lot of 8 seniors, but only 5 guys can play on the court at a time. So you have 3 seniors at any given time, plus the juniors and sophomores that are on the bench, right? But every one of those guys, whether they're in the lineup or whether they're sitting on the bench waiting to get back in or waiting to get in for the first time or whatever, they all play a role. And being that supportive role and not just trying to take it all on your own shoulders makes it to where they can play well as a team. They have
Right.
that chemistry and they can achieve the ultimate goal that they want to, which is to win a championship of some sort at some point. Even if that championship is just winning today's game is a championship of its own, right?
Sure.
So if you think of it from that standpoint, what if you look at like Frodo and his character and what he went through, he was he was most overcome, and where it got most dangerous for him was when his pride got in the way,
Hmm.
where it was the ring that was doing it to him,
Sure.
but he was succumbing to it, and it
Hmm.
was only Sam's humility that saved him from that, because he was on a
Absolutely.
death spiral if Sam doesn't, through
Save
his
his ass.
humility, because Sam, even to the point of being exiled, maintained his humility and
Yep.
did not defend himself, did not fight to to say like, no, don't send me away. Like he accepted his fate. I mean, he pushed back a little bit, but he didn't like go murder Gollum. And you know what I mean? Like there's
Right.
a whole lot of things he could have done to take matters into his own hands and he had some temptations along the way for sure.
Hmm.
But ultimately, when he had some opportunities to seize the power or to let his pride get the best of him, you really saw that even those times where he fought back, it was because he was trying to protect Frodo, not
Oh,
because he was worried about himself.
oh, for sure. And one of the things that the movie misses out on that the book doesn't is in the scene where Frodo and Sam come back together. They focus on the fact that Frodo had lost the ring. and
Mhm.
Sam just happened to have it.
Right.
But in the book, Sam is like troubled that he's got the damn thing.
Yeah,
He's like,
yeah.
he's like,
I'm not
oh,
supposed to have this.
I'm not supposed to have this shit. What the fuck? You know, that's not my
Right.
job. I'm supposed
Yeah.
to make sure he gets there.
Whereas to contrast it, Boromir
Oh,
wants
yeah.
it really
For
bad.
sure. Mm-hmm.
You know, and it's a shame, and it's so beautiful that like because I knew you had something, but I didn't really like put those together.
Mm-hmm.
But the Voltairine Declare quote coupled with the thumbnail that you chose for tonight is just beautiful. Like what a great marriage of like recognizing, because I was like, man, I don't know, man, the individual, like sometimes people get a little bit too caught up in themselves and you know they're worried about the individual to a negative extent. But yes, like to the point that we are as individuals, we all we have control over is our own behavior, our own responses to things, and our own disposition towards
Right.
the world. So no, this is beautiful.
Right. And to me, these are, you know, just to relate it to something that is going on right now in the world that relates to like libertarian, the anarchist stuff, is most people don't realize probably, but libertarians certainly do, that Argentina just got its first libertarian president, and he
The
is
world just
right.
got its first libertarian president of
Correct.
any country ever.
Right. And you know, I'm on you know, Twitterverse today and seeing all these libertarians just tearing his ass to pieces.
Mhm.
He was a member of this, he was a member of that, he was doing this, he was doing that. Libertarians are busy tearing down their own, as they always fucking do. And anarchists are like, he was elected, so you know he's not a real anarchist. Okay, well, he's talking about Murray Rothbard and
Right.
Lysander Spooner to the fucking world
Right.
as a president. I think we'll be okay.
Yeah. Well, all right. So let me push back a little bit, but in
Sure.
a different way, right? Okay, because as cool as this is, I want to like take a moment to just like soak it in. Like, there's actually a libertarian president of a country, something that we were told never could happen. And instead of everybody pointing to Somalia or
Right.
any of these other places, now we get to actually watch in real time, like, all right, what's about to go down in Argentina. And I will say this, that like, number one, he's just one guy. He's just the
Correct.
president. He doesn't run everything. He's not a
Doesn't
dictator.
have a Congress
So,
behind him.
but he does have the ability. The president does have the ability. Well, I don't know their constitution, so let me just stop there. But at least in the United States, if we were to happen to have a president through executive order and some other, like a lot of these departments that are unelected, not even in legislation, they were just created out of whole cloth through executive order. A lot of that stuff can just be yanked. Like he was pulling off the afuera,
Right.
the ministerio, the whatever, like afuera, and then he pulled one of them and it didn't come off, and he's like, and you too, even if you resist, because like when he pulled the magnet didn't come off the first time, and then he pulled it off again. He's like, even if you resist, but that's cool to see, right? So he can do a lot of stuff by the stroke of a pen that would actually remove a lot of the government that's there. But I want to kind of warn people that number one, he's just a human being
and imperfect,
right? And he is subject to pride and greed and corruption and all those kinds of things, right? Number two is that I have to be honest, while it's fun to watch someone say those things in that way with that kind of fire in their belly about that stuff, we have to be really, really careful that we don't lose our compassion in this stuff, because yes, it's great. Yeah, like, all right, the minister of whatever, Health and Human Services, like, yeah, all right, it's gone now. Okay. But there needs to be some sort of a plan to like wade into the water and not just jump off into the deep end of now what's going to happen. Because there are going to be some people who are I don't know,
Disaffected.
living off of certain programs or whatever. So I hope that the Argentinian people and all the people who are like really happy about this are willing to put their money where their mouth is and pick up the slack and support these things in the efficient and more free market and more compassionate and conscientious way that we're supposed to take care of people who can't take care of themselves, or take care of people who maybe even can take care of themselves, but who have been lied to and have been fed this
Aren't used to it.
doctrine that and indoctrination that we are all like owed something from the government. We have to, it's not enough to just be like, ha, anarchy. Like, no, like that's why we do this show, is because we are trying to show people like, look, it's not just about let's murder the tyrants. Like, no, that's not what we want to do. What we want to do is we want to have everybody realize the freedom that they have within themselves and to take responsibility and self-ownership of themselves and to start doing the right things that will make it to where a lot of this other stuff will become obsolete, inconsequential to their lives. And
Amen.
you do that by taking care of you, your family, your community, and building out. And no presidential election is a magic wand that makes that happen overnight. You've got to do the work.
Exactly. And where I was actually going with that was that I agree with 100% of what you said, but but where I was going with that was that the protagonist in the freedom movement should be our ideals. That should be the main thing. Whatever brings the ideals of freedom and nonviolence and those kinds of ideas, that should be our protagonist. And he is just a hero in his story, and he is and should be. Libertarians should recognize, if not anarchists, but libertarians should realize that this is a hero. They should be able to point at him and say, he did it this way. What can we learn from that? And how can we emulate that? And those kinds of things. But he's a hero. The protagonist is the message.
Right.
And so
we hope that he doesn't become a villain, right?
Correct.
That's the thing is what's that line from Batman? You either die a hero or you live long enough to become the villain.
Yep.
So that's interesting. I want to real quick before you move on to the next thing, Jabari, I have seen this on my list of things I could possibly watch. I've been tempted to check it out, and now that you say this, I'm going to go ahead and check it out. That's going to be the next series that my wife and I pick up to watch together.
It's on Netflix.
We've been looking. It's on HBO Max.
HBO. I may have that.
So yeah. So anyway, appreciate that. That good looks, man. All right. Anyway, what were you saying? Sorry.
No, that's okay. I had made my point. I was just saying that one, come on, guys. What the fuck do you want? You can't turn over if these people think that tomorrow we're going to wake up and bam, everybody's an anarchist.
No, wait,
they're retarded.
Here's what's the worst part about this. All right, this guy is an actual libertarian. And now there's some stuff. Yes, there's some stuff. Like everybody is going to have some stuff that you're not going to agree with. Okay, this guy's an actual libertarian, but I have watched them try to get Bill Weld, Lincoln Chafee, Bob Barr, like it was who is it they're trying to RFK, like they're just like, well, what if we could get Matthew McConaughey? And I was like, are y'all listening to yourselves? Like when an actual libertarian does something, y'all shit all over him and try to start a war over it, but then y'all take any sloppy seconds from the Democrats or the Republicans and want to put L in front of it. And I mean, listen, not for nothing, it's only fitting that the letter for the party is L, because that's generally what they're taking.
For sure.
But I mean, and shout out to the Mises folks, like for starting to turn some of that around. Again, same thing with them. Like we've had Michael Heiss on the program, we've had Spike Cohen on the program. We've had a lot of these guys, Josh Smith, who was with them, and now there's been like a falling out with those guys too, and
and Harlow's
and right, Karen Ann, right,
Karen Ann. I mean,
so you get all these different folks who have been part of what has been kind of a, I don't know, like a tilling of the earth of the Libertarian Party, and planting some new seeds for some new growth. And I issue the same caution to them as I do to anybody else. Is like, okay, make sure you don't lose yourself in the process. Make sure that the protagonist role and the hero role doesn't turn you into the antagonist and the villain, because you make it more about yourself and less about what the journey is and what the ultimate goal of that journey is.
Amen.
Because that, there's a lot of, I mean, you could say that there are some similar types of stories, but they don't quite have that same harmony that you have when it's someone going the opposite direction, right? Like the ones what makes it a hero's journey is that there's some growth and some, they come out and they become an example of what you should do, what you should be trying to strive to be, versus some of these cautionary tales where you get caught up in it. And like Icarus, you fly too close to the sun and then your wings melt and then you come crashing down to the ground. Like, if that's where the story ends, then that's not a hero's journey. The story has to have like some sort of redemption and some sort of growth out of that death.
Correct.
That you have to kind of die to yourself and to your own selfishness and pride, and become the thing that you were designed to be, that you were created to be.
Right. And I think that sometimes too, we get so, because I know I do. And I guess saying we is probably wrong. I fall into this. I so often want to be either the protagonist or the hero. That's where I want to be, right? I want to be one of those, because what I just put out, I'm gonna put it up here again. That Justine said here, and we're all heroes.
Right.
There's a degree that I agree with that, and I think that yes,
we all have the potential to be heroes.
Right, and we're developing, in our way, if we get on the path towards God or towards freedom or whatever it is. But sometimes you're not. Sometimes in your life, it just is that's not the position you hold. I think for the majority of my family, I'm the Gandalf figure. That's who I am. For a lot of my family, I direct them, I help them learn things. I'm this weird, crazy guy that, that smokes a pipe, but but what would it, and they need me, think about the position that Gandalf plays in that story. That story would fail. No one would win. Frankly, no one would win if Pippin didn't, who's one of the hobbits. Right. If Pippin didn't do some things, he guided some shit, but he
also got everybody killed. Or no, that was Mary. That was Mary. Mary. No, it was Pippin.
Pippin's the one that looked in the crystal.
Pippin looked looked in the eye of Sauron. Like, it's like, yo, chill, bro. You just about to made the block hot as hell.
Right.
You have to get us all caught up.
But the argument can be made though, without Pippin doing that, because the worry was that Sauron was going to know what Pippin knew, and they were terrified of that because he knew so much, But in reality,
he's too dumb.
Right. I go.
He's too dumb to have his mind read.
Right. But
all of these pages are colored already, and they're all outside the lines.
Right, for sure.
This book is terrible.
But the reality is, if Pippin hadn't done that, Sauron thought, and this is all.
He thought he had Frodo.
Yeah, he thought Frodo, or because he didn't know names, he thought that person, which was Pippin, who happened to be with Gandalf and that whole troop of people, he thought that added to the fact why he looked his gaze straight at them as they were coming towards him, which was something that Gandalf had purposefully played into. He wanted them to do that because he wanted Sauron to divert his attention not at his land and the things going on there, because he knew that not Bilbo, but Frodo and Sam were almost there.
Yep.
And so without Pippin, he wouldn't have deflected. But I have gone off the track. What my point is that without Gandalf in that story, they fail. And so if the like, for instance, to use the idea that the protagonist in the freedom movement is the message, is the idea of individual liberty. And we're supposed to be being Pippin, or we're supposed to be being, Gandalf at any particular time, and we're trying so hard to be Sam or Frodo, then we've missed our Pippin. We've missed our Gandalf.
Yep.
So stop doing that shit. Be who you need to be. Stop trying to be the leader and the boss, or the one who's going to rush in and save the day. Other people might have. Now, don't get me wrong. There might be somebody that is that position at that time. But
what's really interesting, though, is if you look at like just a subtle play on the human psyche that Tolkien made when he wrote that whole saga from the Hobbit all the way through, is that, and you go back even further, the Silmarillion and everything else, is that he wrote a book to only be read by humans, where the humans weren't the main characters,
right?
Even though the humans are there, the humans play a role, but they are, and it's kind of crazy, because like if you think about it, like it was that have like a childlike faith sort of deal that makes the hobbits what they are, because they're almost like children in their in the way that they handle themselves, and the humans, the grown-ups, the adults, are the most corruptible and the most prone to actually lead us all to destruction. And it's a really clever play, because if you think about you're reading this as a human, and I'm sure because when you first crack those books open and you start reading them, like you're like, oh, there's some humans here. Oh, wait, why are we the why
aren't we the main characters?
Why are we written like this? And why aren't we the main characters? And at some point we're going to become the main character. Oh, look, Aragorn. Okay, Boromir. Now, one of these guys is going to be the guy, And yes, of course, Aragorn becomes, he returns to his throne at the end, but it's not as the conquering king. It's just as he's just claim, and that's, again, it's back to like all he did was have his divine sonship restored.
Yeah.
It's like the fall was fulfilled, and now he's back where he belongs.
Risen again,
where he belonged all over again.
Yeah, it's another hero's journey, and again, I hesitate, because yes, at times in the story, the protagonist and the hero can be, Gandalf, or can be, think about when they're in Helm's Deep, and Gandalf comes riding in on his horse and saves their ass. Yes, he was the hero in that.
Shout out to the sun, by the way, for helping tremendously.
Because orcs suck.
Orcs like, what the? I can't see.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, but I think that we can learn a lot from those lessons, and one of the reasons why I really like using even Star Wars or Tolkien or any of these kinds of stories is because nobody's trying to defend it as their faith. Nobody's when yes, the Bible,
it's like any other beautiful work of art. It's you write into it and read into it what touches you in your own way, and that's why so much, because if you look, it's this old saying in Hollywood where it's like, if you have a message, leave it at the tone.
Mm.
Like, I'm not interested in your whatever your political message
Right.
is or whatever. Like, no, make a good movie, and the best movies, they follow this.
Right.
They follow
For sure.
this. The
Yeah.
best movies, the best books, stories, whatever. Everything else, even like SNL skits. As soon as they start trying to get political and making
Yep.
it just about one or the other, like, no, man, if you're not lampooning everybody, you're not funny. You're just
Yeah.
political.
For sure.
And if you're trying to push a message, it's gonna land hollow and like a thud dead on some people because it doesn't resonate with them. But what resonates with people is the hero's journey, because it's written into every one of us.
Mm-hmm.
The moment we're created, we can't help but have this as part of us. And so you can, if you think about it, you could put any skin on that story.
Right.
And every human being is going to find a way to relate to one of those characters, to relate to part of the story, to relate to some of the storyline, all of that. It's all, it's all like it's a harmony.
Oh, amen.
And so what it is like when you create a story, either you're creating a story that has a melody that everyone can sing along with and sing their harmony with it, and it doesn't come off, tone deaf,
Mm-hmm.
versus the other stuff that is like, oh, okay, you're just clang, 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 clang.
Right.
It's like, this is the worst song I've ever heard in my life. What are you doing?
And that doesn't mean that you can't have a message of sorts, but the focus can't be the message. A good example of that is George Carlin. George Carlin, I mean, half of what he says should be in libertarians, libraries and pulling out. But he wasn't a libertarian. So
no, but he was always just saying stuff that was true that nobody could argue with.
Right.
Like, you couldn't be like, I mean, the only people who could have maybe, when he's like, it's a big club and we're not in it, the only people who could have possibly gotten upset about that and not agreed with it are the people who are in the club.
Right. Right.
And they weren't in the audience.
Right. So, George W. was like, what you talking about?
Yeah. So, but, if he had just been like, yeah, it's all the Republicans' fault, or it's all the Democrats' fault. Like, no, man, it's if you don't see how it's everybody's fault, like it's I don't know, man. You're barking up the wrong tree, and you're just going to alienate some people because that's the other thing, is that people have put, like we were talking about with, like, art allows you to put yourself inside it and interpret it through your own experience, right? How you relate to the art. What people sometimes will do is they will put on political parties or sports teams or musicians or whatever, philosophies as their thing. And then if you're doing that, then it makes it to where, like, now the art is that, and it's not really art, because somebody who isn't wearing that political party can't relate to your art.
Correct.
So they can't put themselves into your art and then feel what you're trying to express. So that's where it becomes more challenging. Whereas, like you're saying with Carlin, everybody in that audience resonated with that shit, man. Right. That's why it landed, Now, if you're just in an audience that is all people who lean one way or the other, then yeah, you could probably get away with some very partisan jokes and everything. But that's why nobody who's not way left of center watches, like, Jimmy Kimmel and all that stuff, is because it's like they have their agenda, and at the expense of humor and appealing to a broader audience, they choose the politics to try to wedge that in. So.
Amen. But I really think that we've just touched the surface on what we can learn from looking at these formulas, because whether you're talking about going into something like the Bible, or you're talking about like another religion, the Bhagavad Gita, or some other religious text, being able to identify yourself and find commonality with the hero's journey you're on, and you've realized that you're on. When you can compare those, that means that those texts and that religious doctrine, or in the freedom movement side, that understanding of freedom,
Right.
those things are going to hit harder. You're going to ingest that's going to become a greater part of you when you have found that real formula that God presented us. Because what a lot of people, I've studied quite a lot of Jung, and Jung, the whole idea of archetypes comes from Jung, and these things are innate in the human psyche. They're something that we were born with, and I don't know how somebody who doesn't believe in God makes that work. And I don't get, I don't understand.
Certainly a challenge.
Yes, but so if these are gifts from God, and they're patterns that we can find in our lives, that means God wants us to look at that. He wants us to find that.
If you think about it, it's almost like it's that quote from, I think it's St. Augustine. You created us for yourself, and our hearts are restless until they rest in thee, like that sort of thing. It's like the reason why the hero's journey resounds with us is because we were created for union with the Creator.
Agreed.
And when we separated ourselves from that, the only logical step that would make a story have the proper back to music, right? You ever heard like where there's like a song and like they don't resolve the chord, and like it like ends like this dangling sort of thing, and it doesn't resolve, and it's like and like you just want somebody to bring that next note that'll resolve that.
Like,
this is what that is. Like, if you don't come back into union with the Creator, you're an unresolved chord. You're out there like just dangling at the end of the song, waiting. Somebody's waiting for the song to finish, and it just doesn't finish. So it's natural that like you have to the separation is already there, and it's the return. How do you get there, and what's the process that you go through to get there? And for each one of us, it's different.
Right. And in your explanation, what's wonderful about that, Chad, is in your explanation, you just defined what we're supposed to do to God as the hero's journey.
Yes.
Because what it is the initiation of sorts is life. It is what we're doing in this lifetime. And that return is what we give to God, I guess. And what we move back is our experience, the things that we individually had as people. God was like, okay, you're kind of here, go check this shit out. And he puts you out into the world, and you knowing that your job is to get back to him. Right. And what we bring back are those learnings, those lessons, those things, our experiences that God gets to see through our eyes. It's our gift to God too, in my belief, that we give our experiences to him. And because Jesus definitely took a different pathway towards God than I did.
Well, he loves us, right? And so if he loves us, it's like and that's why the other part of it that resounds with us is parenthood.
Oh, for sure.
Parenthood, and like being a child who has parents, like when you're growing up, like you witness a little bit of, you may not see it that way, but you witness a little bit of some things that are similar to your relationship with God. And then as you become a parent, you kind of have that same thing. Like, I love my kids, so I want to hear about their experiences.
Right.
I want to hear even about their failures, where they've done things that they think are going to let me down. And that's why we were talking about the thing with my son last week. Was it last week or week before? I think it was last week with Duke Lucas,
Mm.
where we had this conversation, and he was like, "Look, I really appreciate the fact that I can talk to you about this, and I can tell you that I messed up,
Mhm.
and you're gonna like handle it. You're not gonna go crazy and like do what I mean? Like,
Sure.
I would much rather him feel like he can come talk to me when he knows he's made a mistake, and we can talk through it, and we can fix it, and he can learn from it, and have that than have him hiding things from me because he's afraid that I'm going to blow up at him because he did something wrong."
Amen.
So
Yeah, agreed completely. And I I got to tell you, I don't I think that you're a little farther down that bend than I am with Anya. Whew, I love her to death. She's a wonderful little girl, but man, she ain't telling me shit that she did wrong. And I think that part of that's because I'm a bit of a pain in the ass sometimes, and I get mad, and because I have a lot of hopes and dreams for her, and when she fucks it up, I'm like, quit being a dumbass,
yeah, yeah.
go do
I mean,
you.
yeah. I mean, there's always going to be that, but what I think. I mean, there's like specifically some things that he knows, stuff
I get
he
it.
shouldn't have done, but he came and talked to me, like, and he's like, "Look, this happened, and I learned from it, and I'm sorry," and that kind of thing.
Yeah, oh yeah,
But it comes, I guess, where it starts is that as we're having those conversations about what the hell are you doing, why are you doing this, like, don't it's you got to come at it from that standpoint of like, this isn't for me.
yeah,
I'm not saying this stuff so that you can not embarrass me, or so that you can not do something that is going to make my life more inconvenient or anything like that. I'm saying this stuff because, like, I've been there. I've made these mistakes. I don't want you to make the same mistakes. There's no reason for me to be here if I can't tell you how I screwed up and how you would be better off if you don't follow me down some of those paths. And if I
same.
can tell you, hey, I've been there, and I wrote it on a sign on that path that says, "Don't go here. It's bad down there." So just, listen to me, because I'm not out here to just stop you from having fun.
Right,
I'm actually trying to make it to where you get to survive in this world,
for sure.
and not just survive, but to thrive. Because that's the biggest part of it, is like, some of it is like keep them from dying, right? Or getting severely injured.
Right,
But some of it is also like helping to set them up for success so that they don't
correct.
have to
Learning
experience
habits.
the types of failure that some people don't recover from,
Right.
not
Yep.
necessarily physically, but like emotionally. And so
Yep.
I'm trying to help them, protect them from that. And it's funny that we talk about this as we're coming off of a basketball game that I just went to, which I gotta be honest, like, it's the best game I've ever seen him
Oh,
play.
good.
And it's crazy because their first home game was last Thursday, and he and another teammate of his both had 2 fouls in like the first 3 minutes of the game, and so they sat out the whole rest of the
Mm,
first half. So then he comes back into the game, and like, I think he ended up with like 5 points. He ended up with like 3 fouls, but he had a terrible game. He was not happy. They won, but
mhm,
individually he didn't have a very good game. And we've talked about some of this stuff, and
mhm.
it's so funny because, like, all the things that we talk about, I'm like, look, man, I'm not trying to live vicariously through you. I
Right.
don't like, this isn't for me. I'm not even going to tell you stuff like you make me proud or anything like that, because it's not. I'm trying to avoid pride. I just want to see. I know how much happier you are when you're doing well and things are going well, and I want you to succeed. I want you to have those good experiences. And so here's how you can have more of them and fewer of the negative ones. And we go through things, and I show him stuff on film and everything. I'm like, look, you see what you did right here. Okay. Like, this guy was open, whatever, that kind of stuff. So we go through all that. Well, they lost by 2 in this game. So, but he had a really good game individually, but he's still, looking at it as we lost. It sucks that we lost. But I finally got a chance. I was like, do you see what I mean now? Like when you do the shit that you're capable of doing, because a lot of it was like just confidence and him like believing in himself and going and challenging certain things and doing the things that he's capable of doing. And it was just cool to watch, because it was like that stuff, the conversations that we've had, to have the conversation that we had on the ride home tonight, where it was like, look, man, I've been telling you, this is what you can do. This is what you're capable of.
Nice.
Go get it, like go. Right. And I think it was cool for him to, to not have me be like, all right, so why'd you do this when you did it? Why'd you do this? It was, and I don't know. It's not, I'm probably painting this horrible picture. They're like, he comes home and he's like, you scored 13 points, but I'm only going to talk to you about all the negative shit. But most of the time, like, yeah, a lot of what we talk about is
improvement,
is the things that he can improve on. Because I'm like, look, why would I talk to you about high five on the 13 points you scored or whatever, but you could have had 20, like that's the thing I'm looking at is, and I'm not saying that because like I'm mad at you that you didn't. I'm saying like I want you to realize like what your potential is, that kind of thing. So,
dude, I get it. I'm a dad, and I'm not a huge sports person, but but my daughter plays tennis, and she does run track, and like when she was struggling, with. I can't ever win. Now she's, was in 6th grade, first time she'd ever picked up a racket,
right.
And
which from what I hear is very late, because my brother is the one that lives in Mexico. He was telling me like they have these kids that they start picking up a racket when they're like 3, and they're already like, as soon as they can see the ball and like make contact, they have a racket in their hand. I'm like, yeah, man, look, I'm not trying to, like, I don't mind, like, if my kid wants to throw a ball, play with a ball, roll a ball on the floor, I'll go play with them, because they're having fun. But I'm not about to be like, hey, you're 3. Let's get a racket in your hand. And you're like, what the hell do I do with this? Do I hit my little brother? Like, oh, your brother's 9 months old. Don't hit him. Because that's I try to let kids be kids. And then, like, if part of them being a kid is they really love running around, like his little boy loves, like he cries if they won't let him take his soccer ball into the school. He's like almost 2, and he
loves it.
He's just like, why can't I take my ball? And they're like, well, we have a lot of balls here. And they're like, bro, he doesn't understand that. He just wants this one. Let it, can you take it? No, you can't take it. So anyway, that kind of thing. Like if that's what it is, yeah, like let's go throw the ball. Let's play with the ball. Like I had to beg my dad to come throw the ball with me outside, and he'd go dig in the grass, pull weeds and stuff while I'd be like, Dad, I'm going to hit you with the ball if you don't stand up and like look at me. So anyway, continue what you're saying about her.
No, I was just saying that I get that, because, and we've deviated from the hero's journey, I suppose, but,
okay.
but
we're still on.
But right. But
it's a side mission
for sure. But with her, for the longest time, it was, just trying to get her to score, just trying to get her to be able to do something. And once she could, and once she got to where she had a pretty good serve and she was pretty good at hitting it back and all that kind of stuff, well, then Dad started talking about stuff. Hey, let's see what we can do with this, and let's see what we can do with that. And
you got to let the sponge. It's like a sponge. If the sponge is dry, it won't take up any moisture.
Right.
But if you wet the sponge a little bit, not too wet, but it can't be dry and hard. You've got to have it like just supple enough that it'll actually soak up that spill.
Right. But one of the things that we're talking about too is the difference between a father and a mother. Dad's job is to be like, you won that game. Good. Kill him next time. Just wipe the floor with him. Yeah. That's a dad. A mom's like, yeah, you played well. Awesome.
Right. No, my wife is. This is my wife. So I'm like he's going to the goal and he's like, going up and under, and he gets hit on the head as he's going in, and he's throwing it up like that, and like the ball goes in. I'm like, and one, let's go. And my wife is just like, oh my god, is he okay? Like she's just like she can't take it. She's like biting her fingernails the whole time, worried he's gonna like get his head taken off or break an ankle or something like that. And I'm just like, let the kid play, man. Like he's just let him go have fun.
Yeah, I think that there was a meme once that showed it was like a mother taking a child for a walk, and the picture of her with the child in like a stroller. Dad taking the kid for a walk. He's got him by the foot, walking down the.
Yeah, right. No, so there's a interesting too though, because Justine was talking about like perfectionism and ambition and competition. You remember that I said this a while back, but it was this book that I read. It's called Living a Life That Matters by Harold Kushner, is a rabbi.
I vaguely remember it.
Yeah, well, he talks about he contrasts mother love and father love.
Nice.
And how mother love is like that nurturing, unconditional type of love, whereas father love is more of that discipline and, in a lot of ways, conditional love. It's the like there's certain expectations that you have to live up to, and because I'm trying to, you got to go out there and not die.
Right.
So
it's my job to make sure you don't die.
I need to make sure that like I'm going to hold you to some standards, But he talks about how we need both.
Yeah, absolutely.
That it seems like unconditional love is all we need, and it's not true, because he made this perfect metaphor for me where he said, imagine you spend all semester writing a paper, and you go up and hand it to the teacher, the professor, or whatever, and they just write F on it and hand it back to you. And it's like, you didn't even read it. You just gave me an F? Like, what
for
the
no
hell?
Reason. Yeah.
Like that's where you need the father love of the wait, hang on, I'm sorry. Trying to remember. I messed this up. You hand it in and they give you an A+ without even reading it. It's like, that's the mom love. And it's like, okay, I know you love me. And I know that like Larry King said, like I could murder somebody and my mom would still defend me. She could see me do it and she'd still defend me. But yeah, so that's the mother love. You get an A+ without even them reading it.
Right.
And they want you to just read it. Like I need to know that my work was worthy of that A+.
Right.
Even if I just get a B, at least I know it was me and not just like you saying like, it's okay, I just gave it to you. But then at the same time, if we go in and we work so hard and they go through it and they're just like red ink all over, just shred it, and you get an F, then it's like, that's where you need the mother love. It's like, golly, right. I worked my ass off on that, and you just like rip me a new one. Like,
can you just love me a little?
Can I give a little? Can I get a little bit of something for my effort? Like I could understand if all I did was write my name at the top and I didn't even didn't even write the paper. Sure. But gee whiz, man, I spent all semester on this thing grinding. So we need both, and that's where, like, again, back to the hero's journey. That's where, like, for me, as a Christian who sees like the what was done, on the cross as like this gift that I cannot earn.
Yeah.
It's an unearnable gift. It is that A+ that all I have to do is accept the paperback and boom, A+, got it.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I know that like I've got to at least turn in the paper. I don't get an A+ for just not even turning in the paper. And if I get that A+ and I don't accept it, and I say, no, I refuse to accept this A+, I would rather just drop this class right now and take an F than get this fake A+. That's where like we come to that little, I don't know, that conflict point, I guess, with our souls and like mercy and like our justification, within ourselves. Like we
Sure.
can't justify ourselves, but we also have to. It's I don't know. It's hard to explain, but it's like the things that I do. I went through a period of time for a long time where I was trying to check boxes and earn my way into heaven, and I have realized now that it's there are things that I need to do, but those things are not things that I need to do because God's out there checking boxes. There are
Correct.
things that I need to do because they are the things that make it to where I'm making myself less likely, or I'm accepting that gift more freely in a way that makes it to where I'm less susceptible to these little evil voices telling me that I'm not worthy of that grace and that mercy and that love. Right. So, and because that's the real danger, is that we would express all this faith in God, and then when the going really gets tough, and somebody says, "Hey, I'll stop torturing your wife, and I won't murder her if you'll just bend the knee to Satan," or whatever it is, and you go look at the temptation of Jesus in the desert. It's like, give you all this stuff. He's like, nah, man, I'm cool. Like, my kingdom is not of this world, so I don't need your kingdom. Yeah. You're starving. Here, turn this stone into bread. That sort of stuff. We're going to be offered those same kind of temptations, and we are every day, where grasping at the things that we think we can't live without, and that God's not going to give us if we don't take it. That's where we hurt ourselves. So it's not so much that we are getting on God's naughty list. It's that we're willfully like refusing his gifts.
For sure.
Because we're going and grabbing.
Or
we're acting out of fear, So.
Yeah. But we're all guilty of that, I think, to some degree or another,
Absolutely. No, we are all sinners.
For sure. For sure. But I remember early on in my spiritual journey, with the Kabbalistic stuff that I've studied, there's 10 steps. You just so I'm like, okay, I got number 1 done, I got number 2 done, and don't worry. And then you learn as you're doing that stupid shit. That ain't how it works. God's not got a little list. So you're absolutely right about that.
Well, it's the same as any relationship, right? Like if you can check a whole bunch of, like somebody was it's Evan, my little brother, when he does his theology of the body stuff, he talks about how what is love? How can you tell that someone loves you? And it's like, well, you could do the dishes, and you could go through all these different motions that would fit the definition of like you're loving your wife or whatever, or loving your husband, whatever it is. But there's a relationship aspect to this that is completely lost. Like you could check all the boxes that would say but you could actually like hate your wife.
Right.
You could hate her and do the dishes and give her a back rub and go buy her flowers and all this stuff. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And you could hate her. Like that doesn't mean those things are. It's not automatic that means that you love her. It just means that you did some stuff that people who love people do. Sure. So yeah, it's the intention and the relationship that's important.
For sure. And I think that relates to, because to kind of move this towards wrapping up, we, within the hero's journey, this is just a tool. It is not another box for us to check off.
Right.
This is just something we can use, we can look to see, to
get an understanding, to have an understanding. Yeah.
It's a tool. So use it as such. Use it when you're looking at what's going on to your life. If you're depressed, you're having problems, whatever that is, look at the hero's journey. Where am I on the hero's journey? How can I use that? What am I going to look for? If you figure out that, if we're using, the Lord of the Rings as our guide, Gandalf just died, he's off doing, he just died. The Balrog just took his ass right out. And so you can think to yourself, okay, well, he's going to manifest again in my life. If you're looking at that pattern and you're trying to find where that's going to, so you're going to be looking now. In reality, most people don't become alive again like you did. So, but you might have another Gandalf figure that comes into your life. Be looking for that to help you to get through the next challenge in your life. And if you're looking for that and following that pattern, which is a gift from God, you can give yourself some hope that things are going to come around. You can help bolster your faith that you're going to get through whatever your troubles are, whatever those things are. This is a tool, so use it. And what I encourage is that the members of the freedom movement do the same. That they look at the hero's journey. They stop trying to be always. Now, you might be at one time or another, but stop trying to be the protagonist all the time. Stop trying to be the hero all the time. You might be the hero in your journey, but you might be something else. You might be Sauron or Saruman or somebody like that in the greater story. Get your shit right. Be where you need to be. Do what you need to do. So we should be using these tools. And the hero's journey is just one among many tools that we have that we can use to not only, find freedom in our lives, which is a wonderful thing, but it isn't as important as finding God. And
no, for sure.
So I think that we should just look towards those things.
Yeah. So if I may, I'd like to close us out with a quote this is from Father Seraphim Rose, who's like this. I'm just going to read it. This is really good. It says, why do men learn through pain and suffering and not through pleasure and happiness? Very simply, because pleasure and happiness accustom one to satisfaction with the things given in this world, whereas pain and suffering drive one to seek a more profound happiness beyond the limitations of this world. I am at this moment in some pain, and I call on the name of Jesus, not necessarily to relieve the pain, but that Jesus, in whom alone we may transcend this world, may be with me during it, and his will be done in me. But in pleasure, I do not call on him. I am content then with what I have, and I think I need no more. Why is a philosophy of pleasure untenable? Because pleasure is impermanent and unreliable, and pain is inevitable. In pain and suffering, Christ speaks to us, and thus God is kind to give them to us. Yes, and evil too, for in all of these we glimpse something of what must lie beyond, if there really exists what our hearts most deeply desire.
I like it. I do have to say, I gotta, because this is my philosophy. I have to use a little bit of Crowley, because although I agree largely with the quote, I agree with this quote more. And it's a quote by Crowley, and he said, existence is pure joy. All the sorrows are but as shadows. They pass and are done, but there is that which remains. Now, I think that Crowley, as opposed to who did you say the other
Father Seraphim Rose?
They're coming from a little bit of a different angle, because Crowley's talking about the universe as a whole. He's talking about God,
right.
that is absolute joy.
Right.
But I would, again, I think I agree with almost everything that you said, but I want to put it into perspective that God is love, God is joy, God is happiness. By being with him, we realize the absolute fulfillment of existence.
Right. Absolutely. Well, so I think if you, I'm not going to read it again, but I'm saying, like, if you reframe it in the perspective of what he's talking about is in separation, there's pain and suffering is inevitable. And so when we're in pleasure, but separation, then it's like a numbing that keeps us from wanting to be reunited. Whereas when we're in the suffering, we actually seek reunion to ease that suffering. So I think that's where it's more of a I think it's more kind of, I don't want to call it semantic, but it's just it's more of like the way that what they're describing and how they're describing it is less incongruent, I guess, than and it kind of matches up that yes, like God is love and he is everything. But we can still separate from him. Like it's a mysterious thing. That's why it's like it's way harder for us to understand than that's why, remember when we showed that Onion thing where the guy's interviewing God and it's just like, we are really stupid and cannot comprehend what he actually is. And so it's sometimes we just are trying to do our best to describe it. And that's what we do here. For sure. We appreciate everybody for coming and listening to our dumbasses while we talk about this stuff because
I don't know, man.
We don't have it all on lock just yet. We don't. We are well into our hero's journey, but we have a long way to go.
For sure. But I got to give credit where credit's due because one of my best on that hero's journey, my I don't know which character you would be, but I guess if in my story I'm Luke, I think you're probably Han. So so in my story, that's cool. Women. But
Princess Leia, let's go.
Right. But I gotta say, in my hero's journey, Chad, I'm very thankful that I've got you right beside me.
Likewise, bro. Like it's insane. Like I don't even know what to say. It's I'm not gonna lie. Like there's some moments where I'm like, man, I don't know how I'm gonna do the show this week. I'm gonna try to find a way to make it happen and everything. But like it's you. No, I'm just it's like I keep coming back. You and Nicco, and I hope Nicco's all right. I know he said he was gonna be late, but he was
hooking up with his girl. I think that says about all we need to know.
Okay, chill. He didn't say that. He said he was picking her up for work.
Right.
He didn't go into all that. But
all right. He was getting with his girl.
I'm gonna just assume that he needed to take care of her, like just make sure she made it home safely and all that good stuff.
Hey, dude,
keep it wholesome.
I don't know if you watched the Halloween story, but I got to meet her. She's a keeper.
Oh yeah, all right, let's go. All right,
yeah, she's a keeper.
I'm happy for Nicco then. That's good. Yeah, that's good. Because I've been trying to ship him with all kind of people, Sky Daddy and Donnie, and like Donnie. Donnie ended up with Jeff. So, I mean, Nicco's tall. He's like 6'1" or something like that, but he ain't as tall as Jeff. Jeff's like 6'4".
He thought he thought I was tall too. That was the biggest shock. That was the biggest shock.
Right? He didn't know when I sent you a gnome that was symbolic. Like, what are you? How tall are you? Like 5'7", 5'8"?
I'm actually 5'10".
Are you 5'10"? Mm-hmm. It's been a long time, man. That was 5 years ago. I've forgotten. Maybe I felt taller that day. It might have been. I was wearing some platform shoes because we were in suits, so maybe that's what it was. You might have been wearing flatter shoes than me.
But I think I was like 6'2"
that day. Huh?
I think I come off shorter, and because I got like I told.
How do you do that? How do you come off shorter? I don't understand how you do that.
Because I'm a dwarf, dude. I looked like a dwarf.
You do look like a dwarf, but you didn't look as much like a dwarf back then as you do right now.
Still had facial hair.
Right now, you definitely look.
I got no image going on.
It was more trim than it is.
It was.
Let's be honest. And that's when I got to meet Anya, and it was she got in some ants or something.
Yeah, she did.
We were walking, but that's good times. Yeah, we got to get together again so we can and get the whole crew together.
100%, 100%. Well, guys, thank you for watching this. This has been this is one of my favorite topics, and I got to give. I know that we're at the end.
This is one of my favorite shows too. I love this show. This show's awesome. Shameless plug there.
Right. But I do have to give credit. A lot of the stuff that I've thought about and been thinking about as it relates to this with the Lord of the Rings comes from a site called In Deep Geek, and I've linked them below. What I like about him is he only uses the text and the movies. Anything that's text and movies, he doesn't like go off like, well, what if this had happened? Most of the time it's just, these are the you need to understand these things, like how powerful was Gandalf, what does Sam's point, those kinds of things, and what wasn't covered in the movies, those kinds of things. It's a really good site to learn all things that are Lord of the Rings and Tolkien. And so I want to give a plug for that, because I've definitely learned a lot from that. And some of the information I shared today came directly from Robert at Indie Geek. So
that's cool. I have
really
to check that
stuff.
out. Sounds good. And I'm definitely going to check out 30 Coins on Max Jabari. Sure. Thank you for that, because that's one I've been seeing. Like I said, I keep seeing it, and I'm like, do I want to start this? And I saw the trailer, and I was like, this looks really cool, but I don't know. Like, it's 2 seasons already. I don't know if I have it in me to start another. But my wife and I were looking for something because she just finished one, so we might just jump on that one. Yeah. But I want to remind everybody to don't forget, if you enjoy the show, of course, give us a like, make a comment if you weren't watching it live, or even if you were, give us some comments down below. But also, like, as much as you can, share this episode if it resonated with you, but the show, the channel in general, so we can spread the love, spread the Aquarian anarchy, not just anarchy alone, but we do it a certain special, unique way here, and we like to make sure that everybody gets exposed to that if possible. So yeah, we really appreciate everybody giving us a share. And if you haven't already subscribed, what are you waiting for? Right. Hit the sub button and hit the little notification bell so you can get all the little dings when we go live. So with that, I don't have anything else, Marcus. You got anything?
Nope. Just telling everybody to stay free.
Peace, y'all.